Welcome to the Freshman Edition of Plead Your Case. I'm Colin Rhodes, and today we are talking about the NBA, the NFL, and NCAA college football. We're going to start off today by talking about the National Basketball Association. The new season started just a few weeks ago, and already we've got some insight as to how the rest of the season will play out. So, Megan, what are some of the teams that you think are just downright awful to start the season?
Well, Colin, thanks for having me here today, but I would say the worst team in the league right now has to be the New Orleans Pelicans. They are just not doing the best that they think that they obviously could, because they did have a couple roster changes heading into this season, hoping that it would obviously result in a better season, but it definitely is not working considering that their record is 1-10 overall. And they have suffered and lost a few key players with injuries. Brandon Ingram and Zion Williams are both out with injuries right now. But even as a result of that injury, you should, as a team, find a way to get better and adapt to that. And the Pelicans have just not found that chemistry within their team. And unfortunately, I think that they're the worst team in the league right now.
Will, who do you think is the worst?
I partially agree with that. I also think that Oklahoma City Thunder are the worst team. They have the worst point differential in the league with a minus 14.5. They just haven't been able to really generate anything, and kind of like the Pelicans, they have like no chemistry at all. So I think they are also like the worst team in the league.
Surprised no one mentioned the Detroit Pistons, who are currently like bottom 5 in many of the offensive categories in this league, especially with a record of 1-8. Moving on, Philadelphia has just got Ben Simmons problems all over the place. He's currently not playing, and there's some effects, obviously. Will, do you think that effect has been positive or negative?
I think they're doing pretty well without him. I mean, they're 6-2. They've been winning games that I don't think people would have thought they would have won without them. They were missing Tobias on another game, and their last game that they just played, and they won without him. On top of that, they are 11th in assists in the league. Last year, they were 22nd, and Ben has helped them out with assists in the past couple of seasons. And for them to be doing that well with assists kind of shows that I don't think they're really missing him at this point. And their offense has just gotten better since last season. Now, their defense is still kind of, it got a little bit worse. But if their offense can produce how they've been producing, I think they really aren't missing him.
All right, Megan, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have to agree with him. The Ben Simmons drama has definitely overwhelmed the Philadelphia team, but despite all the drama going on, they are still a very well-rounded team, and they are obviously still doing really well without him, considering that they are the best team in the Eastern Conference currently. So I agree with Will that they obviously don't need Ben to do as well as they think that they do. And he was a really good aspect and piece of the team, but like Ben said, if Philly is succeeding without him, then I don't think that it is a real issue to keep this drama going.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. They've been doing phenomenal without him. Moving on to the West, the Golden State Warriors, best team in the league overall with a 9-1 record. They don't even have Klay Thompson yet. And Steph Curry's been doing amazing. What are your thoughts on this, Megan?
Oh, Steph Curry is he's above and beyond right now. He is playing at an MVP level. He just came off a recent game with 50 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists. And that is just insane. That numbers, they just look so good. But I just think that the Warriors are doing extremely well, especially since they have suffered from injuries and losses of a couple players. Klay Thompson, James Wiseman, and rookie Jonathan Cumming. It's insane that they're doing as well as they really are with a loss of all these key players. But I definitely think that they're doing well, and they're looking like the old Warriors team who was able to win 3 championships in the span of 4 years.
And Will?
Yeah, I agree with that. Stephen Curry, he's averaging 27.4 points a night. That is better than his career average, which is 24.6. So for him to do better than that, it just shows I think he is the best player in the NBA right now. And as for the Warriors, they're looking almost unbeatable at this point. It's early on in the season, but like Megan said, they have so many injuries and they're still producing. They also have the best third quarter points per game. They are averaging about 31 points. And then their latest game, Steph Curry just put up 50 points. So the question is really, can he keep going and keep scoring as many points as he is right now?
All right. And that is all we have for the NBA. When we come back, we'll be talking about the NFL and which teams have the better season ahead of them.
Welcome back to Freshman Edition of Plead Your Case, and in this segment we are going to be looking at the NFL and we're going to go around the horn. So Colin, I'm going to start with you. The Patriots versus Bengals, which team is going to do better through the rest of the season?
Well, I'd have to say the New England Patriots. They have a pretty easy schedule ahead of them, not to mention two of the other teams in their division are the Dolphins and the Jets, who have been pretty bad this season, especially the Dolphins, who have been underwhelming overall. The Bengals, in the meantime, they're in the AFC North, which is arguably the toughest division in the league. They also have to face teams in the AFC West, another tough division.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Colin. I would say that the Bengals are sitting better than the Patriots right now simply because Joe Burrow is just doing so much better in the pocket, and he's thrown for about 2,500 yards so far this season, and he's just looking much better, and he has that connection with his wide receiver. And just because of that, I think it proves how well of a team that they are, especially since you said, Colin, that they are in a harder division. It just shows how well they work as a team and the connection that they truly have.
Yeah, I have to agree with Megan there. The Bengals, I think they've shocked a lot of people this season. A lot of people didn't think that they would be as well. And I think that even though they may look a little rough, they've lost some games I think they could have definitely won. I think they're going to pick it up more. I think they have some chemistry there that they're still working on. As for the Patriots, they're 50-50. I think, with Mac Jones, he's still a young quarterback, so I think it's going to take time for him to become the quarterback that people are hoping that he becomes. So, all right, so next up, Megan, we're going to start with the Cowboys versus Packers.
My vote would definitely be the Cowboys right now, just because, like I said before, with the quarterbacks, Dak Prescott is just doing amazing so far this year, throwing over 2,000 yards already, and especially with all the drama going on in the Packers right now with Aaron Rodgers having COVID and all of the troubles with his vaccine reports and stuff like that, I feel like that drama is really taking a hold of the team, and hopefully it doesn't destroy any of the chemistry, but Aaron Rodgers being out for the past couple of weeks due to COVID, I think is a big setback for them. So I would say that the Cowboys are looking better than the Packers right now.
I would have to agree that the Cowboys are the better team right now. They're definitely one of the top teams in the NFC. They're top of their division. They're also having a pretty decently good schedule ahead of them. The really only challenges they have are the Chiefs and the Cardinals. Sure, they have the Raiders and the Saints coming up, but the Saints, they've been inconsistent. And the Raiders, obviously, they're going through a lot of problems behind the scenes as well. Not to mention, like you said, Aaron Rodgers is a big concern for the Packers. They've also struggled in other areas.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Cowboys they're the better team. And with Aaron Rodgers, who knows, something like this could happen again with his vaccine with the vaccine card and all that. So next up, Colin, we have the Bucks versus Rams.
So the Bucks versus the Rams, I have to go with the Bucks. Sure, the Rams are like the best team in their division. Actually, no. The Cardinals are the best team in the division. The Bucks, best team also in their division. But again, they have Tom Brady. They have a great defense. They got great weapons. Matthew Stafford struggled a lot last game. He's still a great quarterback, though. And it's kind of tough, but I'd go with the Bucks.
I agree and disagree with you in a sense. Being that I'm not a huge fan of Tom Brady, I am a bit biased here, so I'm going to have to go with the Rams. But I do agree with you that Matt Stafford did have a rough game last game, but he is still a really good quarterback, throwing about 2,800 yards this season. And he just has a really good connection with his wide receiver, as he has thrown he has gone for over 1,000 receiving yards this season. So I think that connection is just really going to bring those two together and will help them getting into the playoffs and proceeding as a team this year.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. I think the Bucks, they have they have experience going to the playoffs after winning the Super Bowl last year. They have Tom Brady, who is arguably the greatest of all time. And even though they lost to the Rams, I mean, their defense was injured. And it's early. It was early in the season, so if they meet in the playoffs again, I'm going to take the Bucks, and I think the Bucks will. I think they'll bounce back. So, next up we have the Bills versus Chargers.
So for the Bills and Chargers, both of them currently have a record of 5-3. So honestly, both teams are not having the best season that they wish they would have. But if I were to pick, I would think that I would have to go with the Chargers on this one, just because they have that running back to quarterback connection. And although both quarterbacks for the Chargers and the Bills have been doing very well this year, I just think the Chargers are looking better off. And like I said, that quarterback to running back connection is really what is doing them well. But in all honesty, if the Bills and Chargers want to have a good rest of the season, they're going to have a lot of work that they have to do if they want to be considered for the playoffs.
I'm going to go with the Bills on this one. They're both, like you said, impressive this year. Actually, the Bills have been disappointing at times. They lost to the Steelers on week 1. They just lost to the Jaguars in a slugfest of a game defensively. But the Bills, I think, have the better shot overall at winning their division. The Bills also have a much more experienced quarterback behind them. Justin Herbert's only in his second year. And not to mention, the Chargers are facing the Raiders and the Chiefs. And I think those are more evenly matched division opponents compared to the Bills facing teams like the Dolphins and the Jets.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are the better team, mainly because the Bills have just they've been on and off this season. And like you said, the Steelers game, they were just off, and then last game against Jaguars, I mean, they put up 9 points. It was terrible, and it's against the Jaguars. Chargers, I think they're a younger team, but I think the Chiefs haven't been looking too well, so I think they could definitely make it. So next up, Colin, I think Seahawks versus Vikings.
Well, it's kind of tough because I don't think either team is going to make the playoffs. They're both 3-5 right now, and then very tough division opponents. But I would have to go with the Seahawks. The Seahawks have the easier schedule ahead of them. They don't have to face AFC North teams. They don't have to face the Green Bay Packers. The Vikings will have to face the Packers twice in the rest of the season, and they also have to face the Chargers and the Rams.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Colin. I don't think either team is doing well at all, and neither team is going to make it to the playoffs, in my opinion. So I would just have to definitely agree with you that the Seahawks are going to have a little bit of an easier season, so it's looking better for them.
All right. So when we come back, we'll be talking about the NCAA football and if Georgia will be beaten.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies like Frozen, or TV shows like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing though. Take a trip to the second floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper. and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
Welcome back to the Freshman Edition of Plead Your Case. I'm Meg Barry, and right now for this segment we're going to be talking about the NCAA football. And first we're going to be starting with, can Georgia be beat? So Will, what do you think about that?
I don't think they can. I mean, they're 9-0, 7-0 in the conference. They're 5-0 home, 2-0 away. It just seems that, they haven't had a lot of road games, but I think that they're just, they're a really good team. They have good chemistry, and I just don't see them being beaten. They've beaten some pretty good teams, so.
I'd have to agree. Georgia has just been on a tear. They have scored more than 30 points in all but one of their games. Defensively, they haven't given up more than 10 points in a game. And their opponents, they've had some pretty good games, like you said. Even going into the playoffs, I don't think there's going to be a team that can beat them. I would say Georgia's going to go all the way and win the championship.
I completely agree with you both. Georgia has just been elite this year. Every game that they have gone into, they have had a high win probability. Their average going into every game was an 80% win probability. So that in itself just shows how elite this team is. And I agree. I think that they can't be beaten, and I also think that they are a great contender to win the championship this year. Now, Oklahoma or Cincinnati for the playoffs. What do you think, Colin?
Well, obviously both teams have been impressive. Cincinnati, especially for being a small school type team that they are. But I'm going to have to go with Oklahoma. They are the more recognized football program, which means they're probably going to be ranked higher over Cincinnati, which is not in a Power 5 conference like Oklahoma. If Cincinnati loses, that recognition is going to hurt them a lot, especially since they don't have very tough opponents ahead of them in the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree. Oklahoma has a 71% chance to make the playoffs. They're only second to Georgia, which has a 97%. Cincinnati only has a 45%. So just looking at that, I would take Oklahoma over Cincinnati. And what, like Colin said, that Cincinnati isn't really facing people that, teams that aren't, would be considered amazing, good, but, not amazing. So I would have to agree.
Yes, I agree with you both as well that Oklahoma over Cincinnati all day. I just think that, like you said, Colin, they are a more recognizable team, and they are known to work under pressure and to do well in the playoffs and make it almost to the championship every year, if not every year. So I completely agree. Now, moving on to the next question, is it possible for a two-loss team like Alabama or Ohio State to make it to the playoffs this season?
I think Alabama could. Maybe they could squeeze in there. It all depends on how everyone else does. They could get very lucky, get in, but at the same time, teams might look at that and be like, you know what, we don't want Alabama in the playoffs, so they play harder than they would, and they try to knock them out.
I'd have to say the answer is no for both teams. Schools like Notre Dame, Oregon, and Michigan State are right behind them in the standings. They also only have one loss. Should either Alabama or Ohio State suffer a loss in the rest of their season, I think they're going to be out, and Notre Dame, Oregon, or Michigan State will take their place.
I'm going to have to agree with Will here. I don't see why there could be a problem for either team to make it to the playoffs, but at the same time, Colin does have a good point that those big-name teams are right in front of them with only one loss, while Alabama and Ohio State both have two. So if Alabama and Ohio State want to make it to the playoffs like they hope, they're going to have a perfect season in the rest of the regular game season. So one final question. Is it more likely for Notre Dame to win a playoff game or join a conference? What do you think, Colin?
I'd have to say that they're more likely to win a playoff game. They're a very well-respected school, meaning that they'd get very high up in the rankings. Their independence from a conference is also what makes them unique for most other top 25 schools. Sure, BYU is up there, but they've been confirmed to be joining a conference in the near future. Notre Dame isn't. But if Notre Dame were to join a conference, it'd definitely be the ACC. I still say, though, they win a playoff game before that happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll win a playoff game before that, and I don't think they're looking to join a conference. And Colin is, I like how he said they're kind of unique, and that's what, I think that's what people like them is, they're not in a conference. So I'd have to agree.
I completely agree with you. I definitely think that they would win a playoff game before they even consider joining a conference. I have a feeling Notre Dame is going to be the school to only join a conference when they are told that they have to. But another part of that is there's been many people who think that Notre Dame shouldn't be allowed into the playoffs with these Big 10 and Big 12 teams because they're not in a conference. Do you guys think that is a consideration, that they should not even be allowed to play in the playoffs because they're not in a specific conference?
I think that's a really bad argument. You look at how they play, how they've done in seasons past against some pretty tough opponents. They're really good. They're basically a Power 5 team that's not in a Power 5 conference. They're too good, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a weak argument. I mean, I think it's honestly just, people that just don't like them, that just don't want them playing in the playoffs. And, I mean, they've earned it. If they're that good, they should be able to play, so.
Well, thank you, Will and Colin. That's all we have for the freshman edition of Plead Your Case here on WCTV Channel 14.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.